Well, good morning, everyone. It is great to be here once again. Training camp is underway. Last night we saw a couple of we saw Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. We saw Washington against New England. And as always, I'm here with Jimmy over at Phoenix and Jed over in Chicago. So welcome, everyone.
Good morning. All the playoff, the preseason games start this weekend too.
So let me ask you guys a question. Did you watch the preseason games or did you watch the Field of Dreams game with the White Sox and Yankees?
I didn't watch either. I did read the follow-up, though. Heard about was it Tim Anderson's home run? That was pretty impressive. And but the big thing for me coming out of the games was Mac Jones. I have to admit, I popped on eBay and started looking up, Mac Jones rookie cards because I was like, hey, this guy could be the real deal.
Hey, I think he's going to surpass Cam Newton pretty fast, actually.
Yeah. Hey, Jed, you should have watched the White Sox game before we go to AFC North. It was 7-3, bottom of the top of the ninth. Liam Hendricks gets in. He always is automatic. And then he gets one out. There's a 2-run homer by Aaron Judge. Now there's 2 outs, and then another one hits another home run. So just like that, they surpass it. And then from that point on, Tim Anderson comes in and hits a game-winning homer to win it 8-7. It was a great, great game.
Yeah, and those jerseys are beautiful. I want the jersey. That was the big thing.
I actually didn't see it. Did it look pretty neat where they were playing in the Field of Dreams?
Oh, yeah. Corn everywhere. It was great. They had all the players coming out from the cornfields for the introduction. It was I had in the background. It was a very, very good game.
Was Kevin Costner there?
Yeah, he came in. He led the charge with all the players.
Yeah.
And then he shared a few words and everything. Hey, tickets, they said, was the most expensive since the 2016 Cubs. They were averaging $3,000 a ticket.
Wow.
Okay, so I was thinking about it. Would you rather have gone to the Field of Dreams or the Hall of Fame speeches this past weekend where Peyton Manning presented?
For me, Hall of Fame. I mean, I watched some of the speeches. It was good. And if you didn't get to hear what's his name from the Colts? No, the running back. He had Edgerrin James. Yeah, Edgerrin James had a great speech.
Yeah. It just made me think one day if this thing ever gets bigger, I would love to go to Canton and do something there. That would be kind of neat.
Have you guys been?
No, I actually haven't.
Oh, it's awesome. I went there. I've been there with my son. It's awesome. Yeah. I highly recommend it. Easy like weekend trip. So it's a blast.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go through the AFC North today. We usually start with NFL news and notes, but today I want to start with the AFC North as we preview the 4 divisions or the 6 divisions that are out there. Hey, AFC, in terms of the AFC division, today let's start with the quarterback or the Baltimore Ravens, all right? Let's start with your thoughts on Lamar Jackson. He had an MVP season a couple of years ago, but here are some concerns. Jackson passed for fewer than 200 yards in 12 of his 17 starts last season. He currently is out with COVID-19 concerns as well, too. But in 2019, he did win the MVP, had 265 completions, 36 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. How high is Lamar Jackson on your radar? Jed, let me start with you.
Yeah, he's definitely top 10, and I would say you can push him into top 5. And the reason is you have to remember this is fantasy, right? This is fantasy football. And so we're talking his rushing yards. That is what pushes this guy. You cannot discount that. Even if he doesn't have the great passing numbers, his legs get him a lot. And so I think for me, he's right at the edge of top 5. I actually would put him probably as my 5th top great quarterback.
I agree with you, Jed. Right? Like, think about it, right? Mahomes is first, Allen second. Then you've got Murray. I would put Rodgers ahead of Lamar. And you're right, number 5. Yahoo did put him number 1 over Mahomes and Allen, which I thought was just way too high. The only reason why I think he actually could hit the top 2 or 3 would be the fact that this is a contract year for him, and he's paying for some big money, right? So you never know. But it's safer for me to put him in number 5.
That's a great call about his contract. I love picking up players on there last year because they always play better in that year. And remember, they picked up Sammy Watkins, right? So a little bit better receiving crew. So there's some upside there.
Well, I was going to ask Jim, the newest weapons they added was wide receiver Sammy Watkins, Rashad Bateman, who now is out rookie. They drafted Rashad Bateman, who is now out with a groin surgery as well, too. There's Mark Andrews, but there's also Marquise Brown, who also is out as well, too. Do you like any of the wide receivers in Baltimore's offense?
No, I mean, look, if you're going to pick fantasy players in Baltimore, I think you're going to go after Dobbins, you're going to go after Andrews, you're going to go after Lamar. The thing is, Lamar takes up so much of the offense, and everything is centered around them. You're never going to get consistent product from any of the wide receivers because you never know how much he's going to be running. You can't even get something consistent with the running backs either, I don't think. So.
Okay, with that said, though, Jed, it's the 9th round, 10th round. You're now on bench players. If Marquise Brown, Sammy Watkins, and Rashad Bateman sitting there, who are you picking?
Oh, if Brown's available in the 9th or 10th, I'm definitely picking Brown. I mean, Brown has home run capability. This guy he's still a stud. He's just small. He gets hurt, but the guy is still a speedster. If he's available that late, I definitely would take him. I think, just like Jimmy was saying, the issue is consistency, right? The passing game in general. I mean, this is a team that relies pretty heavily on the rushing attempts. I think they were, if I'm not mistaken, they were top 5 in rushing attempts last season. So,
I mean, J.K. Dobbins is going up pretty high in a lot of these draft boards. I'm still not entirely sold on J.K. Dobbins, but people love him.
I just told Tommy I switched in my keeper league. I told you guys I've been deciding between Chris Carson and Dobbins. I just switched it to Dobbins because it does seem like there's some upside. And remember, he's still young, so there could be some higher potential for him.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, with J.K. Dobbins, the Ravens led the league in rushing attempts last season with 555 rushing attempts. It accounted for 60% of their plays last year. In the last 11 games of the 2020 season, Dobbins had 827 combined yards, 8 touchdowns, and 11 catches. Jed, let me ask you, turn back to you. In a standard league draft, how high is he going on your list? If you were in the top, is it top 5? Is it bottom 10? Where you put second round? Where are you picking Dobbins?
Oh, definitely not top 10. I would say, and again, Dobbins, I think the impressive thing about Dobbins, if you look at his overall year numbers, not that great, but remember the second half. So if you look at the second half of the year, he was the 9th rated running back. So he was top 10. So that's what you're kind of hoping for. As far as where to draft him, I would still say he's roughly in the 15th range. So he's in the high teens, which means if you think about that as a starting back, you're probably thinking maybe 4th round roughly is where, and maybe 3rd round if you're going to stretch. But I think if you see him around the 4th round, it's someone you got to consider.
Yeah. I mean, you're picking him around what? Kareem Hunt, DeAndre Swift, Josh Jacobs, David Montgomery. I think J.K. Dobbins will get a consistent somewhere between 12 to 16 points every week. And some weeks you might get more than that. But I think that's where you're slotting him.
Yeah, I'm saying a lot of the Ohio State running backs seem to do well. And so Eddie George and all those. So a lot of times I have high hopes for J.K. Dobbins. Jim, Gus Edwards, is he even on your radar?
No. But, I mean, unless something happens to J.K. Dobbins, you're not picking up Gus Edwards. You just wouldn't pick up Gus Edwards.
Yeah. And Jed, I'm going back to you with Mark Andrews because out of the 3 of us, you are a huge Mark Andrews fan. How high is he going in your draft?
Yeah, I had truly trouble with this one. I was telling you all, I love Mark Andrews, but he did have a down year last year after just a gangbusters rookie year. The thing about Andrews, I mean, I can't see not having him in the top 5 for tight ends. It's just he's got the numbers, he's got the attempts, he's the leading receiver, in Baltimore. And the big thing with him is red zone attempts. If you look at red zone attempts for tight ends, I believe he's the 2nd ranked for tight ends. So a lot of potential there, but I wouldn't say outside of the top 5 tight ends.
Yeah. Well, yesterday we were talking about this earlier, right before we jumped on this podcast. I had my first draft yesterday, and I picked a tight end way too late, right? The Kelseys, the Kittles, the Wallers were gone. And so I was looking at Pitts, I was looking at Hawkinson, and I was actually looking at Andrews. And it was either that or going after like an Etienne or even a decent wide receiver. I should have gone for the tight end, because right after you pass that group of Andrews and Hawkinson, that's like a big drop off. Then you're going at Tonyan from Green Bay and a couple of these other no-name guys. And so for me, I'm like, look, either you have to say, I'm going to try to go after a tight end early, or I'm just going to have to be satisfied that I'll get somebody like Irv Smith down the road that I'm hoping will do well.
Yeah, and that's actually a good reason you should have tiers when you guys are doing your drafts. You should definitely block out. So you list your tight ends and then put them in tiers. So like these are the first tier cut and these are the second tier cut. And then tell yourself you have to get someone out of no later than the second tier. And that way you realize, because there's a big drop off. Like you said, there's all the positions. There's this spot where if you pass that, there's this drop in the quality of the players.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm baking all my hopes on Jonnu Smith and Hunter Henry from New England. All right,
Henry was out a little bit. Yeah, Henry had a little bit of an injury, but I agree. I think people, if you haven't been paying attention, the Patriots, remember what they did when they had two tight ends. That's there could be a lot of points there.
You're right. I actually think Jonnu Smith. Hunter Henry should have never gone to New England. I just think that's going to be a waste of services. But I actually think Jonnu Smith is going to be a sleeper this year from a tight end perspective.
Why do you not think Hunter? So when they had, the person we will not mention, along with Gronk, they both had over 1,000 yards. So why do you think there's not enough to go around?
I don't know. I just think Hunter Henry. Here's the problem. Hunter Henry. Maybe I think last year, but even last year, I think he missed some games. He's always injury prone, right?
Okay, yeah.
And so for me, he's just an inconsistent player. And at some point, they're going to be like, you know what? We're just going to feed the ball to Jonnu Smith. What I do think is going to happen is the first couple of weeks, Smith is actually going to get quite a bit of those receptions, and all of a sudden he's going to be their go-to guy, and Hunter Henry will be an afterthought.
Yep. And we'll preview that a little bit next week, because a lot of times they're missing a lot of wide receivers. There's not a lot of wide receivers there, but Damian Harris is really, really good. Let's switch over to the Browns as well, too. Any of you guys like Baker Mayfield? Let me just actually talk to you. Cleveland is a run-first offense. Baker Mayfield does not get a lot of throws down the field. Odell Beckham is inconsistent. And in 2020, he passed for fewer than 200 yards in 7 of his 18 starts. Is Baker Mayfield someone, Jim, let me ask you, are you even looking at him, bypass all of the good quarterbacks, wait for him and grab a Baker Mayfield?
I don't know. Right now, no. But it goes back to the contract year. Him and Lamar Jackson are up for big paydays. And like we said earlier, when you're up for a big payday, you're going to do especially well in that contract year. And they want numbers like some of these other quarterbacks are getting, right? The Matthew Staffords of the world, the Josh Allens of the world set the standards. Josh Allen just got awarded a multi-million-dollar contract. And they said that both Lamar and also Baker Mayfield is asking for either Josh Allen money or more. And so you're going to think they're going to go after some of those things. My only hesitation going back to that is, does he have the receivers, the Beckhams and the Landrys of the world, that will allow him to do that?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, he's not a top 10 quarterback. I don't think you should have Baker as your starting quarterback, but he's not a bad person to gamble on and potentially have as a backup that someone could step in, on certain weeks. Because as you said, the Browns really are a run heavy offense. But all that being said, I would say it sets up perfectly for Baker, because the thing about Baker is he is a play action pass quarterback. So without the established run, he's just not any good, but they figured that out. And so now with this great running game, he gets set up for pretty big plays, because when you think of play action pass, those are always like 20+ yard plays.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a good statistic for Baker Mayfield. From week 12 on in 2020, Mayfield was QB number 7. And look at the roster. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Odell Beckham Jr., Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper. That's actually a very good lineup right there. And so who knows? At the very least, if you sit there, I would probably wait until the Pat Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and then look at even someone like a Baker Mayfield or even, let's say, another Ryan Tannehill. That actually might be a great combination on your bench.
The other big thing for Baker, remember, this is his first time having the same head coach 2 years and offensive coordinator 2 years in a row, which is really sad, but that's a great thing because his comfort level with the offense should be really high.
The one thing that ESPN was talking about that I thought was an interesting conversation, going back to Tommy's stats, he did do really well. He was the number 7th ranked quarterback, but he also did without Odell Beckham Jr., right? And so he did that with Jarvis Landry as his primary receiver. The question now that they were asking is, will Odell come back and keep demanding the ball, which I think actually is a distraction for Baker. Because he can't focus on any of the other players around him because he has to spend so much time taking care of Odell Beckham Jr. Or will Odell Beckham Jr. have evolved to a point where he understands that he's part of a team and he's not the only person that's going to receive the ball?
Jed, let's go on as well, too. Let's talk about running backs. Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt. How high is Nick Chubb on your list?
Oh man, Chubb is a stud. I definitely top 5. I mean, this is a guy to me, given the proof last year. Remember last year we were so worried about, okay, is Kareem Hunt going to take, what's he going to take from Chubb? And Chubb proved out that, man, he could still produce at a super high level. I think he's right on the outside of top 5 or right there. I actually, I have him as my 5th highest running back after McCaffrey, Cook, Henry, Kamara, and then I think Chubb is the 5th guy. So I think you pick this guy in the first round. Definitely. He should not go outside of the first round.
The only weakness for Chubb I would see is if you're playing in a PPR league, he doesn't catch a lot of passes, right? So it's a lot of handoffs. Then they throw it over to Kareem Hunt. So I would say if you're in a PPR league, that's the only. If you have to decide between him and let's say I don't know, Alvin Kamara, I choose Kamara because of the PPR primarily.
Yeah, that's a great point. Definitely not a great pass catching back, and so totally agree with you. But if you're in a PPR league, remember your rankings are going to be really different. So just be careful with that.
A couple of things that's to know. He's a great red zone target, was top 5 in total touchdowns in 2020 with 30 touchdowns. He finished as RB11 in 2020, even missing 4 games with a knee injury last year. Again, he's a really great player that you cannot miss as well too. Jim, Kareem Hunt.
Yeah. I know we've been talking about this no running back league, right? And so one of the things that I've been thinking about is if you are going to go that strategy and pick really good wide receivers at the beginning, the types of players you want as your running backs is the Kareem Hunts of the world because they're going to give you the consistent points. He's not going to do a lot of points, right? Because Nick Chubb is the primary back. But every week, you can usually depend on Kareem Hunt to get somewhere between 12 to 16 points, which are pretty good if your running backs is a 2nd or 3rd tier. And so for me, that's one. If I'm going that route, Kareem Hunt's the person I'm identifying to pick up as one of my running backs.
Yeah. Hey, Jed, going to Odell Beckham Jr., a lot of times injury history. He is no longer the player that he was during the New York Giants days. If you had a chance between Odell Beckham Jr. or Michael Thomas, who are you picking?
Ooh, that's interesting. No, I would pick Thomas there. I think Thomas, a proven number 1, and the only thing you're worried about is the quarterback situation in New Orleans. But yeah, I think that's an interesting actually toss up because I think OBJ is getting a little bit of a bad rap. I mean, I think his, some of the baggage that comes with him is carrying over, and I think actually last year, you didn't hear much coming out of him. So I feel like as long as Cleveland is playing well, I think he'll be a good soldier and fit right in. And so the key is if they can keep winning. If things start going south, that's when it gets a little tricky.
Jim, if Odell Beckham was sitting in the 5th round, are you picking him up?
I wouldn't, but I would really consider him maybe in the 6th or 7th round. The crazy thing about Odell Beckham Jr. though is if he had a tremendous year and he was the top 5 wide receiver, we wouldn't be surprised. But if he stunk it up and was last and actually even got injured, none of us would be surprised as well too, right? So he's just one of those guys I would take a flyer on. I'll disagree with you, Jed. I would take him over Michael Thomas, only because you're not really sure about the injury of Michael Thomas. I can see him sitting out for 6 games, and by the time he gets around, you only got 2 games with him for the playoffs. I'd much rather take my chance with OBJ.
Yeah. Jed, Jarvis Landry, is he even on your radar?
Oh man, I'm a Landry fan. I've always thought that yeah, he's just a great player and doesn't get enough credit. But yeah, I think fantasy wise, he's obviously probably a wide receiver 3 for you. So he's someone you're looking, pretty far down, maybe 8th, 9th, 10th rounds. But I wouldn't mind picking him up again. I think this offense, to me, Tommy, we were just talking about this. I like to pick players from teams that are playoff contenders, that are championship contenders. And I think the Browns are in that. And so you want to get a piece of that offense.
Yeah.
So I was thinking
last year, before you say anything, is last year he had an average of 12.5 fantasy points per year. He had 72 receptions, 850 yards, but only 3 touchdowns. Jim, thoughts?
So here's my thing, right? Like I put him in the category with a Marvin Jones, or I put him in the category with a T.Y. Hilton. They're going to be consistent. They're going to be there every week. So here's the question that I was really kind of thinking about, right? And it depends on where you're at in your strategy for fantasy. Would you rather have a Jarvis Landry who's going to be consistent, but they're going to be your 3rd tier? They'll do okay every week. Or would you rather spend your picks on, I don't know, somebody, I'm just thinking out loud, like a backup player like Alexander Madison for the Vikings, that if tomorrow, or Tony Pollard, right? Tony Pollard would be a great, that tomorrow if Ezekiel Elliott were to get injured, all of a sudden Pollard becomes your number 1 running back, and he's in the top 5 or 6 of your team running back category, right? So for me, I'd much rather take a risk on the Tony Pollards of the world than to go after the Jarvis Landrys of the world. But that's just how you look at it from a strategy perspective.
Jed, very quickly, Austin Hooper is probably one of your last running backs, but he has great potential. In 2020, in 13 games, he had 46 catches, 435 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And so, look, I mean, I know he was fantasy 21 in 2020. He's probably on the lower end. What do you think of Austin Hooper?
Yeah, I agree. I think he's on the lower end. I think he's outside of the top 15, maybe even the top 20. So I think there are some other tight ends that I'd rather take a chance on. The tight end, it's interesting. The tight end kind of draft class, as you said, there's this clear top tier, Kelsey, Waller, Kittle. And then there's kind of like a middle tier with Andrews and Hawkinson and maybe a Pitts. And then there is a drop off. I don't know.
Big drop off.
Yeah, but I don't know that I would put Hooper in there, because I think of Gronk, I think of Jonnu Smith, I think of even a Evan Engram. I know you like him, Tommy. That's someone that I might even consider over a Hooper.
But the only thing about Hooper, remember that in 2019, he did phenomenal with Atlanta. That's one of the reasons why Cleveland signed him. And so you're always thinking about the Atlanta days when he was literally one of the top tight ends over in the NFL.
Yeah, 2 years is a lifetime ago, though.
Yeah, man. But here's the thing, and not to say we're trying to spend too much time on Cleveland. If you have a Nick Chubb, a Kareem Hunt, and OBJ, that's a lot of people you got to take care of when you're at the goal line, right? And so Hooper becomes your last option, and I just think there's a couple of other group players out there that's better, like an Irv Smith with Minnesota, that I'd much rather throw in there.
One thing we didn't say yet, Tommy, either, is who do we think is going to win this division? Like, I think that this is a crazy division to try to figure out between the Browns, the Steelers, and the Ravens. I mean, I don't think anyone's picking Cincinnati to win. So who do you think is going to win this?
Oh my gosh, it'll be the next team that we talk about, the Steelers, for sure. I'm pretty sure it'll be the Steelers.
You think for sure? I don't know about that.
A lot of the pundits, a lot of them are picking Cleveland. They're the ones that they're really saying that's the number 1 team in this division.
Yeah, I think the Steelers are on the downturn for me. I feel like, we've seen Brady prove that you can age and age well, but I feel like Ben is not one of those guys. So this team, to me, I know you guys like the offensive players here, especially Jamar Chases of the world, but I'm not high on the Steelers.
All right, I'll tell you why in 1 minute. We don't talk very much about IDP defenses, but if you do play in IDP in Cleveland, the one person you need to watch, Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa, linebacker rookie in Cleveland. He won the Buckus Award as the country's top linebacker in 2020 and slipped out of the first round, but he has good instincts, good range, had 80 tackles, 13 and a half tackles for a loss, and 5.5 sacks and 2 forced fumbles during his last season in college. So he is someone that you need to pay attention to as a potential sleeper in IDP. All right,
Tommy, you and your defensive players crack me up, man. That's awesome that you did that research and the fact that you pronounced his name what sounded like correctly. So I'm impressed. You can have him in our league, man.
And going back to Steelers now, here's the one thing with Ben Roethlisberger, right? Injury play season, everything like that. But here's why I think he's going to do well. He said during ESPN watching it, he started watching what he was going to eat carefully. He hired a nutritionist, everything. He lost weight just to prepare himself for the season. I think it's going to make a difference. I think he's going to do great with all of the weapons around him. Najee Harris, Chase Claypool, JJ Schuster, all of that stuff. We're going to see a better Ben Roethlisberger. If not, Dwayne Haskins is right around the corner.
Hey, if you're right, then you should draft Roethlisberger because you can get him late. You'd be able to get him probably in the 10th, 11th round. So if you really believe in that, I think that should be your strategy. Get him as your QB1, and boy, you saved a lot of money.
Jim, before you say anything, I love your thoughts on it. He currently has the 4th easiest QB schedule in 2021, averaged 17.8 points when he did play. So thoughts on Ben?
You know what? I mean, I wouldn't put him as my QB1, but I would make sure if I had a backup space or for another quarterback, I would put him in there because I don't. Yeah, he lost a bunch of weight. Yeah, he's more fit. I'm not a big believer right now of Roethlisberger because what you've seen for a lot of these players is once they hit a certain age and they get old, they just lose it, you know. But he does have some really good potential. My guess is they're going to try to structure him like they did with Peyton Manning, where they just let Harris run, and then they let the receivers just go out there and he'll throw the ball. I think he'll be fine. I just don't think he'll have a tremendous year. If I had a chance to pick between him and Ryan Tannehill, I'll go for Tannehill.
Yeah. Hey, Najee Harris, Jed, is he? If you were doing a dynasty draft, is he your first pick?
Oh man, yeah. If you're a dynasty, definitely he's out at least top 5. I would say. I don't know if he's top 1. I would be very tempted to get the QB in what's his name, Trevor Lawrence in Jacksonville. But he's definitely someone to look at. I mean, even in a non-keeper league, I think he's pushing top 10. Najee Harris is pushing really that 10th spot. And so to me, he's no later than the 2nd round. If you want him, you're going to have to look early in the 2nd round to get him. But he's definitely not beyond the 2nd round.
Yeah. Jim, I'd like to get your thoughts, but the only problem is he has a bad run blocking offensive line. They ranked last in rushing yards last year. And also they've lost a lot of offensive players in terms of offensive line. Is Najee Harris someone that you're looking at, or would you agree with them in the 2nd round?
No, I think so. I mean, I think the offensive line does worry me a little bit, but Pittsburgh has always been more traditionally structured as a running team. And I actually think that they're going to really push him out so that they can give some relief to Ben Roethlisberger. So I think he makes more sense than Hilaire made for me last year because Hilaire was going, number 6, number 7, number 8, which I thought was really high. I don't think that Harris is going to go that high, but I think he'll go the 2nd round.
Which, by the way, Jim, since I know you like the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receivers over Jed, Chase Claypool, Juju Smith, or Deontay Johnson, rank those 3 for me.
For me, if I were drafting today, I would put Deontay Johnson first. I would put Juju Smith, and then I'll put Chase Claypool. So those are the 3 I would pick. But I think out of all 3 of them, that one with the highest ceiling is going to be Chase Claypool.
Jed.
Yeah, I just too many mouths to feed for me in Pittsburgh, and you're just guessing every week which one of those wide receivers is going to pop. So I tend to stay away. I kind of equate them to Kansas City Chiefs, like the Chiefs too. Other than the quarterback position, you just never know who's going to like get it, and maybe Kelsey, I would say too. But
Oh no,
it's
Tyreek Hill, right?
but it's
You
it's
know, you want to say-
I like Hill, but it's just I feel like there are it's just hard to predict. I feel like
look,
that
look at what he did. Well, that is true. Last year, he had what 2 or 3 games where he scored a lot, and then for the rest of the year, he was okay, but he wasn't like at the top of the wide receivers.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Tyreek Hill is definitely a top 3 wide receiver. I mean, I wouldn't be disappointed in having him, but it just I have a hard time with that offense. It's so prolific. You just never know where all the points are going to go, and it gets really spread out.
Yeah. The only thing is, Jed, Juju Smith-Schuster, no one's paying attention to him because it's such a down year. He'll probably drop down pretty low. He has potential to really be able to do really well because a couple years ago, he was a pretty good receiver.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if he were to drop, into like maybe 4th round, 5th round territory, then definitely because he could easily be a number 1 wide receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Because he signed a 1-year contract as a prove-it year just to get a bigger contract for next year. Yeah. Jim, Eric Ebron, is he even on your radar?
I would consider how about this? I can see him. I'm going to put him in my queue as somebody I'll look at as the season goes on, as a waiver wire pickup. I'm not going to pick him up right now because no one else is going to pick him up. But I'll look at him in my waiver wire down the road.
Just so you know, he was tight end 16 in 2020. He had 56 catches and 5 touchdowns, but that was without Ben Roethlisberger. With him back, a lot of times that's someone that you need to look at as well too. Let's switch over to the Bengals as well too. Jed, let me ask you, Joe Burrow, is he even on your radar coming back from a knee injury? I mean, and right now it's still clicking. They have some offensive weapons, Joe Mixon, Jamar Chase. You have Tyler Boyd. You have T. Higgins, all of that stuff. Joe Burrow, you're definitely not picking him over Justin Herbert, but where does Joe Burrow – would you pick him over Baker Mayfield?
Oh, yes. I would definitely pick Joe Burrow over Baker Mayfield for sure. I think Burrow is outside of the top 10. So he's not in a 10-team league or even a 12-team league. I don't think he's your starting quarterback, but he's right outside of that. And there's definitely some upside here. People are forgetting before he got hurt, he had more yards than Justin Herbert. He was the guy who was crushing it. And then he got hurt, and then the storyline switched over to Justin Herbert, and then everyone forgot about him. This guy is still a stud. And as you said, he picked up Jamar Chase. I said Jamar Chase earlier instead of Chase Claypool, but Jamar Chase, I mean, this guy has tons of upside. I would love to have him on my bench as my QB2, potential to turn into QB1 for the second half of the season.
So this was the dilemma I had yesterday, and I want to pose it to you guys, right? So when I came around, here were the quarterbacks that were out there. There was a Joe Burrow, there was a Tom Brady, there was a Kirk Cousins, there was a Ryan Tannehill, and there was a Deshaun Watson. And so I actually ended up taking Deshaun Watson because I was like, you know what? You never know. Who would you guys have picked?
Oh, Ryan Tannehill. He was QB7 last year.
Yeah, of the group you said, I would have picked Tannehill,
Okay.
especially
How about
with
after
Julio.
Tannehill? Would you pick Deshaun Watson over a Joe Burrow?
Oh, I wouldn't. I just think there's too much unknown, with whether or not he's going to be playing. And Burrow, like I said, he's got a lot of upside. I mean, I think he's like ranked roughly like 11th or 12th. So he's right on the outside edge if you're in a 10-team league. If you're in a 12-team league, I think you can make a good case for him to be your starter.
You guys aren't worried about all those training camp reports that says he's just not doing too well and it's taking some time for him to adjust as he's doing training camp?
He is better than Deshaun Watson, who has the ability. He will probably be suspended when the season starts.
Yeah, and ACL injuries, it takes a little bit. I mean, I had my ACL replaced. It takes a little bit to get your confidence in it back, but I think he'll be fine.
Yeah. Jed, Joe Mixon as well, too. He had a season-ending right foot injury in Week 6 of October 2020. But last year, in 6 games, he had 109 attempts for only 428 yards, 3 touchdowns, 21 catches on 138 yards, and 1 touchdown. It was a disappointing year. People drafted him high in probably the top 10. You just never got anything out of Joe Mixon. What do you think? even with Giovanni Bernard gone.
Yeah, Joe Mixon, Oklahoma Sooner boy. So I like him, but again, the injuries were a concern, and then the offense there at Cincinnati. You hope that they really take another step forward. I would say similar to Joe Burrow, he's right outside of the top 10. He's more into that early teens. We talked about Najee Harris. I think Najee Harris, Joe Mixon, those are the guys you're going to be thinking about right around that second round. He shouldn't really go past the second round, though. If you're at the back half of the second round and you got a chance to get a Joe Mixon, I would swing for that because there's a lot of potential there.
I have Joe Mixon in my dynasty league, and I am not sure if I want to drop him or if I want to keep him. I mean, there's no other better players, but I'm just not. I'm worried about Joe Mixon. He's doing okay, but for somebody that you pick up in the second round, you expect him to do more, and he just hasn't done that yet.
Yep. Hey, next in terms of wide receivers, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, right? People love T. Higgins. Rookie last year. Tyler Boyd, you're probably going to be a number 2, all right? But then at the same time, Jamar Chase was your number 1 draft pick. I hear a lot of great things out of T. Higgins. Jim, what do you think of that?
Really? So out of those 3, I would pick T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and then Tyler Boyd, right? Starting from the end, I think you can get Tyler Boyd pretty cheap, and he'll be a good backup or number 3 receiver. I think Jamar Chase has the highest ceiling, and so if you were to pick him up, given his relationship with Burrows, I actually think he will do pretty well. I don't know if the start of the season he'll do really well, but I think he'll adjust to NFL. I do think that T. Higgins will be the number 1 receiver out of those 3, though.
Yeah, I like T. Higgins of that 3 for sure. And I actually think essentially Jamar Chase will open things up for T. Higgins because it'll allow him to not have any double teams. He already has the great rapport with Joe Burrow. It's going to be in his second year. So I'm a big fan of T. Higgins. I think he's still, though, as far as wide receivers, he's outside of the top 20. So you're probably looking into the fifth, 6th round, and you should be able to still get him. Maybe like the 4th round, but of those 3, I like T. Higgins the best.
This is where, I think about last year though, right? This is where research of your players actually really makes a difference. Because remember this time last year, they had AJ Green, they had Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins was like an afterthought. No one was thinking about him. So people start picking him up after the first couple of games. But it just goes to show that after you do these drafts, there's always going to be a couple players out there that's going to make good impact, and you just got to look for those players.
Yeah. Now, at the same time, we also know that probably Cincinnati has a bad defense. You're not picking Cincinnati as your top defenses. They're going to be throwing a lot. Last year, with Burrow at the quarterback, they threw 40%, 42% of their time. I think a lot of times T. Higgins will be doing pretty well. Last year, he had 67 catches for 908 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, Jed, let me ask you, as we go into this tight end, who is the tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals?
That's a great question. I don't know. You got me, man. I have no idea. I was just going to look up. I didn't know you were going to go to the tight end, so I don't know. Who is it?
Jim, what do you think? Do you know him?
No.
A guy by the name of Drew Sample.
Who?
Drew Sample. We're not even looking at him. 40 catches, 350 yards, 1 touchdowns. Look, there's nothing.
All right, if someone knows Drew out there, tell him we apologize, and we hope for a big year for him.
Okay, so for you guys, is the tight end position an important position for you? You think it is?
Oh, definitely. I think the tight end position has really risen. It used to always be like running back, wide receiver, tight end, quarterback. Mm-hmm. I think tight end has risen to the level of a wide receiver. That's what's been impressive is there's this cut of tight ends that have wide receiver production. And so you have to be willing to go there. And the thing about the tight end position to me is that's one of those ones where since it's just the one position, if you lock in a really good player, you put in that player, you don't have to think about it. So you can spend all your research time on the other categories and not have to worry about that one.
Yeah. All right, we don't have time to go through all of the tight ends, but let me actually go through some of the news and notes and get your thoughts on it. Very quickly, Jed, let me go through you. Colts quarterback Carson Wentz is trending to start week 1 after undergoing foot surgery at the beginning of August. With that said, is he on your radar?
Wow, I didn't know that. I didn't hear that. Trending to start? That's great.
Yeah, they were saying that he wants to start because I think he's been hearing all of this feedback that they're going to try to bring in Nick Foles, they'll bring in Phillip Rivers. I think they're going to try. I just don't know about Carson Wentz this year. So
Yeah, I mean, I was really high on that situation for him. I thought it was a great place to bounce back until he had that injury. I mean, that's not a bad person to take a flyer on, even if he doesn't start the first week and the first 2 weeks. If he could start the third week, that's not a bad person to have as a backup quarterback.
mm-hmm.
Jim, head coach Vic Fangio of the Broncos announced that Drew Lock will start over Teddy Bridgewater in the first preseason. Bridgewater will start the second preseason game. They're dead even.
Mm-hmm.
Are you predicting any of them? Are you looking at any of them?
No, but who the quarterback is concerns me, right? Because you're trying to see, do I really want to go after the Suttons of the world? Do I want to go after the Jerry Judys of the world? Now, I actually think their running back's a stud, but who the quarterback is, if Teddy Bridgewater was the quarterback, I think I have a little bit more confidence in picking some of these Broncos wide receivers. So,
yeah. Jed, running backs Mark Ingram and Philip Lindsay were listed as co-starters ahead of David Johnson on the latest depth chart for the Houston Texans. Any of them on your radar?
No, I'm staying away from the Houston Texans. I don't know what is going on down there. I don't want any part of that offense, so I personally would stay away from all of them.
The only thing that's intriguing is I was reading an article the other day. I don't know if it was – I think it was from Yahoo. But they said that Philip Lindsay has the potential to break out this year out of a crowded backfield. I don't believe it, but it did make me wonder. I was like, oh, so I did. I went and read up a little bit more on Philip Lindsay.
Philip Lindsay already broke out before. I mean, he's had over 1,000 yards, so he's a known quantity. The issue is it's Houston. Like, how many points are they going to score? What kind of offense are they going to have? I just don't have any confidence in that.
And his injury history as well, too. He tends to get injured quite a lot.
Well, and did you see? I mean, I think we talked about this in a previous podcast. Look at all the running backs: David Johnson, Rex Burkhead, Mark Ingram, and Philip Lindsay. That's a lot of people there.
Yeah, Jim, Dak Prescott is going to get another MRI, still expected to start week 1 with his shoulder strain. You like Dak Prescott? Are you picking him, selecting him high?
No, I wouldn't. I mean, I actually was because he was either Kyler Murray or Dak Prescott, and I really like Dak Prescott a lot. But if you're the Dallas Cowboys and you're talking to all these other teams trying to figure out what's going on with him, I actually think that at some point they're going to try to preserve their multi-million-dollar quarterback, make sure that they play it safe, and bring in somebody else. I can't see him surviving the entire season.
Yeah, a couple last things, Jed. Michael Thomas has a productive meeting with the Saints. He was mad at the Saints because the Saints wanted him to get ankle surgery. He thought that he wanted to get a second opinion, avoided their calls. They finally had a meeting. Now he has ankle surgery. What do you think of this Michael Thomas situation?
Yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, Thomas is such a talent. But I agree with what you guys were saying earlier is you have to factor in that he's going to miss so much time. So I think this is a good one where if you have an injury slot, an IR slot in your league, this is someone you might throw, pick up late and then stash him in your injury or IR slot and have him in the second half. But I wouldn't sleep on him. Michael Thomas is a huge talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jim, I did notice one. Packers beat writer says that Marquez Valdes-Scantling is expected to have a quote-unquote monster season. What do you think?
No, every year they're talking about one of these receivers having a monster season. The only people who has actually ever done it is Devontae Adams and
Jordy Nelson
Adams and Aaron Jones, right? Even this year they brought back what's his name? Randall Cobb. I was like, look, Aaron Rodgers is going to take care of his friends, and Scantling might do okay, but I don't think that's not somebody I'm looking at.
Yeah. And last one, Jed, as we wrap up, Usain Bolt challenges Tyreek Hill in a race to become the fastest person. Who would win?
Oh, I got to go with Usain Bolt, man. That guy's a stud. Although now I guess he's older, so you got to see like how much he's lost. And you guys watch that 100 where the Italian dude won? There's like this guy came out of nowhere in the Olympics, right? And then the Italians actually won the 4x100 as well. So yeah, you should never know. But I would love to watch that. I would totally watch that race.
Yeah. Hey, I was very impressed. Speaking of the Olympics, I was very impressed. You there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry about that. I'm frozen a little bit as well too. I was very impressed with Sydney McLaughlin. I really enjoyed watching her as well too. And for some reason, out of nowhere, Jamaica really impressed me as well too. Yeah. All right. Any last thoughts as well too? One side note, Jim. NBA basketball. Kawhi Leonard resigns with the Clippers. Do you like Kawhi Leonard? What do you think of that?
No, I was actually surprised. I mean, I think they had to, but I was surprised how much money he got because they still haven't been specific about exactly what happened to him towards the end of the season and why he couldn't play the playoffs, right? There's been a lot of speculation. I think his knee is always bothering him. They said they might be arthritic. Whatever it is, too, I think they're going to find out it's a bad deal.
Yeah. Any last thoughts on anything, Jed?
No, I'm looking forward to it. We're getting really close. I hope people are getting ready and you're starting to do your mock. We're going to do our mock draft on Saturday, so I'm looking forward to that. But the season is coming up really quick, so everyone needs to get ready, and hopefully we'll help you guys along the way.
And this weekend, Justin Fields is going to play for the Bears, right? It'll be interesting to see how well he does because that'll put pressure on Andy Dalton and the Chicago Bears if he does really well.
That's the one I will watch.
Yeah.
Later next week, guys, we'll talk offline to see if we should squeeze in a second one. We have AFC East the next time that we record and come on. So, hey, follow us on Instagram, Facebook at fantasymatchup.nfl. That's fantasymatchup.nfl. All right, talk soon.